Hi, beautiful people. Welcome to the Fort Salem Library, where we read you your fanfiction. So sit down or don't, relax or don't, and enjoy these stories in a way you have not before. We at Fort Salem Library do not own Motherland Fort Salem or any of the related characters. The Motherland Fort Salem series is created by Elliot Lawrence and owned by Freeform. This story is a work of fanfiction and is meant for entertainment only. We are not making any profit from these stories. All rights of the original Motherland Fort Salem story belong to Freeform. We also do not own Dances Handfasts or any of its original characters and storylines. We did, however, get permission from the author to read their story. This story was created and written by fab_fan, and you can find the link in our show notes. This story is being read to you by Britt. Dances and Handfasts. It was slowly starting to get dark. The miles and miles the van had traveled, dwindling down to nothing more than a distant horizon and a sky full of bluish gray that turned steely cold with hints of white flecks in each breath and the icy touch of Mother Nature, spreading a frosty fringe to the sparks of green still left to fend off winter with the final vestiges of fall in their wind-whipped stalks. The farmland was sparse. Blocks of brown outlined along the empty highway. Dusk brought with it the rumble of the engine attuned to the call of a raven, and the emptiness of a desolate stretch of land once inhabited by families long since gone. The drought wreaking havoc on their crops to the point they moved to the small towns scattered about, finding new work in the shops and trucks driving handcrafted product to the big cities out east. The tires bumped along, forgotten holes opening like surprise landmines and gravel inching beyond the painted white lines to litter the path with a rhythmic crunch. The windows were lined with ice and fog. It was quiet. Nothing but the wind and the wheels to break the silence. Scylla sat near the window. She could feel the chill nip at her ears and cheeks. Her skin was still rosy from being outside, from racing against time to save Rael. Goddess. Wetting her lips, she snuck a glance to her side. Rael sat next to her, folded into the aisle seat. The blonde didn't seem to notice her, eyes downcast, gazing blankly at clasped hands, the blonde's thumb rubbing a patch of skin by her knuckle. Her uniform coat was undone, the shirt beneath thin and loose, creases turned to hills and valleys across her chest and stomach. Her hair was... it was loose, the braids barely there, a wild mane, curly and free. Scylla liked it. Her hand itched to run through it, work through the tangles and smooth it out, feel the softness against her palm, gently undo the braids and let Rael relax in her arms. Hold her until this was all over. Let her know she was safe, loved, that Scylla would always keep her promise, her vow, that hearing Rael was arrested was one of the scariest moments of her life, that her heart stopped beating, the same as it did when she saw the fixer's picture in the Camarilla hideout, the same as it did when Rael vowed to be with her, no matter what anyone else said or did. When she realized she was in love with this beautiful, brash, generous woman who drove her crazy and made her feel okay for the first time since her parents died. The woman who showed her what it was like to trust someone, believe in someone, look past all the flaws and faults to treasure the individual underneath. Rael was the only one who listened, who didn't give up on her, who wanted to hear what she had to say and didn't care about the pain Scylla sometimes couldn't hide, about the anger. Rael wanted her, all of her. Even when Scylla tried to push her away, lied to her, kept her at arm's length, Rael still came to her after dinner, made love to her, whispered in the night about her life back home in the session, Didn't push when Scylla didn't return the favor. Didn't tell her stories about being a dodger. But let Scylla know it was okay to tell her when she did feel okay to share. Except Rael did walk away. They both did. They both lied. Rael lied about no matter what, and Scylla lied about everything except that she loved her. She still loved her. And Rael loved her too. Goddess, Rael loved her. Hearing that on the phone, Scylla felt it, felt the truth in it. Could picture it in her head, Rael standing there, a bit bashful, a bit adorable, but completely honest. Rael didn't play games, not when it came to love. Hearing that Rael was arrested, was being sent to prison, Scylla would never let that happen. She would not let anyone hurt Rael. She had hurt Rael enough on her own. The younger witch had enough hurt in her life. She didn't need any more. Scylla would protect her, would do anything for her. Because that's what love was. Being there, even when it was hard. Being honest. Trusting. She had that with Rael before. When they were together, in love. She so desperately wanted it again. Yes, she would be okay if Rael never wanted her back. Understood it. Expected it. But hope is a funny thing. It never goes away. Not truly. Even at her angriest, Scylla had a kernel of hope deep inside. Rael found it and helped it grow. The blonde once told her that her family used to be farmers, worked the lands. There was a bit of that still inside the collar. She found the seedling of a future in Scylla and their relationship and helped it bloom. Now, though, Goddess. Scylla swallowed, a lump in her throat, and turned back to the window. They kissed. Rael ran to her, hugged her, kissed her, held her face like she used to. Said she never wanted to be away from her again. Yet here they were, alone in the back of a van, Tally, Abigail, and the rest up front, asleep or driving, and not one word passed between them. Not one. Alone together, it was as if everything came crashing down around them. The memories, good, bad, painful, the words left. Scylla opened her mouth, wanting to say something, wanting to hear Rael's voice, hear that she was okay. She peered over at her partner. Rael wasn't looking at her. She slowly closed her mouth. What could she say? Normally she was good with words, knew how to seduce, how to work her way into a relationship. She did it with Bonnie, with the Camarilla, with Rael. But now, there was something, no words she could say. Rael was usually one to break the ice. She knew what to say to make Scylla comfortable. Had a story or a quip. It stayed silent. Nothing. Scylla felt the lump in her throat grow, felt her chest tighten. Here she was, with the woman she loved, finally. And they had nothing to say to each other. Rael had nothing to say to her. She didn't want to push, knew she shouldn't read into it. Rael had had a long day, went through so much. Must be tired, hungry, cold even. Still the doubts lingered. The fears, the questions, the worries. I called my dad before the wedding. Scylla blinked at the unexpected comment. Twisting her head, she watched Rael rub her hands together. Rael hunched her shoulders. I'd never danced before. Not at anything fancy like that. A familiar warmth sparkled in Scylla's heart. A shrug. I didn't want to mess it up. For Abigail. For you. I called him. You asked your dad how to dance? She could clearly see it. Edwin on the line, Rael nervous, the man carefully walking her through the steps. Yeah, Callers don't go to fancy things like that, but he danced with Mom. Her hands fisted in her lap, the scratch of hurt cutting in her throat. They danced at their wedding. He told me how to do that. Pressing her lips together, Scylla slowly, tenderly slid her hand out and rested it on top of Rael's. The blonde instantly stopped fidgeting. Blue eyes and a tiny self-conscious half-grin rose up to meet Scylla's look. I figured all the high Atlantics would know what to do. I'd already stick out. My accent, my everything. Didn't want to make us stick out anymore. She chuckled grimly. I guess I messed it up too. You didn't. Scylla curled her fingers. Rael, I asked you to dance with me. Her face was unreadable. You wanted us to leave, and I asked us for a dance. One more time. Scylla nodded. She did. Scylla wanted them to go. To the drop-off, or the beach, or anywhere else. She had to decide in that split second. Instead, Rael asked her to dance. She couldn't say no. Not to Rael. You were supposed to take me to the spree. To my mom. Yes. She took an unsteady breath. I didn't know it was her. Not then. I know. Rael's eyes dropped to their hands. Lying seems to be a thing for the women I love. Rael, I wonder what would have happened if you took me. Scylla's heart froze. If she had taken Rael to the spree, to her mom. I do too, Scylla confessed. Would Rael have been safer? Would she have been happy? Rael shook her head. I've thought about it. A lot. And I'd still want to dance with you. She looked back up at Scylla. I would always choose you too. Tears pricked the backs of the brunette's eyes. I wanted to be with you at the wedding. Wanted to dance with you and get drunk and not think about the army or training. When they said those vows, you were the only one I could ever see saying them to. You still are. Her grin wobbled and then turned rakish. I don't give a damn about handfasting unless it's with you, and maybe it's the civilian in me, but I've never been about it being only for a few years to make babies either. Might take us more than a few years to make babies. The attempt at levity dwindled the moment it touched her lips as her heart pounded. I never thought I'd get handfasted. My parents did. She thought she'd be dead before there could be any sort of match. To be truthful, it never even crossed her mind as something she would do, at all. We just got back together, Rael exhaled. But I don't want anyone else. Ever. That's what I'm trying to say. Neither do I. Okay. Guess I better tell my dad I have a girlfriend again when this is all over? Rael's eyes shined. He likes you. A lot. Girlfriend? If you want, we're already running away together. I like that, girlfriend. Okay, good. I like your dad, too. He told you stories, didn't he? You were adorable as a kid. Rael rolled her eyes. And he said you would serenade me with your guitar. He'd make sure it's not one of those sad songs. Of course he did. I can't wait. They shared a smile. Me neither. Please find the fanfiction you just listened to on Archive of Our Own and leave the author some love. Without them, this wouldn't be possible, and we want to thank them from the bottoms of our hearts for creating these amazing stories and keeping the show alive.